are the Strategic Transport Authority for London, and most of the things that move in London we have some involvement in, certainly all the buses and the tubes. Some of the trains, we licence and regulate the taxi and private hire trade, for example, and we also help manage around about 580 kilometres of strategic road network in London. It is a real pleasure to talk to you about hate crime from Transport for London's perspective, because it's such an important topic, and it's something that as a transport provider we've done quite a lot on, and of course there's always more we can do. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about what's been happening. So I work in CPOS, which is Compliance Policing on the Street in Transport for London, and we help manage the strategic partnerships that we have with the police. We're responsible for responding to crime and antisocial behaviour on the transport services. And you may or may not be aware that we have a significant financial commitment in policing that helps us ensure we have dedicated policing on the transport network. So we fund around about £140 million a year of policing on our services, and it has made such a difference to the safety and the feelings of safety on those services. It's a really important part of the work that we do. So we've been working specifically on a hate crime project for around about 3 years. We originally thought that we would be sort of doing a hate crime project, making it business as usual, getting some of those activities as part of our day-to-day working practices, and then kind of that would be the work done. In fact, since we started the project, we've realised actually this is something that we need to commit dedicated resourcing to all the time, and it's not enough just to sort of start the work and assume that it's going to be catered for. So we had a conversation with a couple of groups about 3 years ago who came to us and said, we don't feel actually that safe on your services. We think we could be a victim of a hate crime. There was a Jewish women's group that came to speak to us and a Muslim women's group that came to speak to us, and they both said they felt at risk. They said that that they'd seen some of these videos on Facebook and YouTube of people being abused on our services, really kind of vile verbal abuse and hostility. And first of all, they felt that it was likely to happen to them. And secondly, they said that they didn't think anybody was doing anything about it. And we had a really good look at what was happening with hate crime on our services. First of all, we found that the reporting of hate crime on our services is really low. So there wasn't a sudden increase in hate crime reports that were happening, although we know very well that it's underreported. And secondly, we looked at those incidents that the groups had spoken to us about, and we found that in every case, the police had been told, the police were investigating, they'd downloaded CCTV, they'd identified the offender, and they'd arrested the offender. Okay, and that there was every reason to think there'd be a positive outcome in court, but we weren't very good at talking about that. So one of the things that we wanted to do was have that conversation with both our staff and customers on our services. I wasn't able to attend this morning, which I was really sorry about. I was at a workplace violence and aggression summit this morning. One of the things that we know from looking at our hate crime figures is that overwhelmingly, it's our staff who are likely to be victims of repeat hate crime. It doesn't typically happen to customers. So we have a fantastic partnership with the police. My wonderful colleague Tanya at the back, I'm going to embarrass a little bit, it has been so overwhelmingly supportive of the work we're doing as a partnership. So we work really closely with the British Transport Police and Metropolitan Police, and as I say, we have funded resources in both of them. We've basically done a lot of work to develop days of engagement, joint days of engagement on our services, and it works really well. We typically have locations where we'll go to at a major transport hub where we get sort of most impact in terms of numbers, and we'll ideally try to have Transport for London staff there, and either British Transport Police or Met Police, depending on which bit of the system we're on. In case you're not aware, so the British Transport Police, I obviously talk about this themselves, but generally police things on rails, and the Met Police in London police most of the rest of it, including the bus network. So we've set out these aims of our project to really provide that reassurance to people that actually our services are quite safe. But if you ever experience hostility, please tell us. We have set out this vision that says it is absolutely unacceptable for anybody to experience hostility because of who they are, who they're thought to be, whilst they're travelling on our services. It's absolutely unacceptable, and we, with our colleagues in the police, will do everything we can to support investigations. And of course, since we started the project, we have seen these spikes in hate crime. And I'm sure all of you will be familiar with the spike that was seen nationally around the EU referendum result. And of course, we also see increased reports following other events such as terrorist incidents and high-profile crimes. We're very sensitive to this, and we talk to our teams about it. We ask them to be aware of how people are feeling when they're travelling, be aware of how their colleagues are feeling. They might be feeling extra sensitive or possibly at risk. Yeah, and as I said, we've agreed to continue this work as ongoing. It is business as usual. We've got a long-term commitment to it. I'll show you the calendar that we use in a moment. It's also worth saying as well, and I'm very conscious of this given my colleagues, this rather fantastic branding, this We Stand Together, Tackling Hate Crime in London's Transport Network. We're really lucky that we benefited from our partnerships with the British Transport Police to be able to use this branding. And we've used the, as a partnership, we've used the leaflets which the British Transport Police have produced to specifically talk about London's transport network, which works for Transport for London. Okay, I don't know how I'm doing for time. I feel like I'm waffling a bit here. Right. Okay, so yeah, we've done an absolutely massive amount of work to try to engage with Londoners, passengers and community groups. And since the start of the project, it's well over 1,000 events have been held on London's transport system and at community groups. So we've had a dedicated partnership day every month since the start of the project. It's on a Wednesday every month. And since the start of the project, we have around about 30 events every month. It does vary a little bit depending on what's happening. One of the things that we've tried to do at these events as well is do direct community engagement. So whilst most of the events involve us going to major transport hubs, setting up stands, engaging with staff and passengers, actually one of the things that we think is really valuable is to go directly to community groups and talk to them about hate crime, find out about their experiences. It's a really important principle for us that TFL don't just rock up at these events and run them on our own. We really need the support of our policing colleagues. It doesn't happen that often, but sometimes at these events we do get disclosures about crime, and it's really important, we think, that there's a police representative there who can help with that report. So we're also carrying out regular reviews of hate crime, specifically with our Met Police colleagues. So we meet with them regularly to look at all the hate crime reports that have been received on our services and to make sure that they are being investigated, that they are getting the priority that they need. Both the Met Police and British Transport Police prioritise hate crime for investigation. So if hate crimes do take place, they will get that priority. Something that's used up probably most of my time on this project is the effort to increase staff awareness about hate crime. So we really enjoy and value and benefit from having a conversation with our colleagues about hate crime. So I've personally spoke to about 600 staff about hate crime directly. We've taken our staff awareness raising programme and we've turned it into an e-zone package as well, something that can be launched on our local internet services, and we find that has been really useful. It's been really interesting. I don't know how many of you have spoken to people about hate crime who aren't necessarily in the policing or community safety or hate crime world. And one of the things we found, for example, is that our staff had quite good understanding of what hate crime was, but they didn't generally know They didn't generally know the 5 monitored strands, for example, of hate crime, much less awareness of, for example, disability hate crime. That was something that wasn't really well known or understood. The other thing we've done is we've also published transport-related hate crime figures as part of our TFL's quarterly crime bulletin. We publish this all online every 3 months, and we've recently started publishing the hate crime figures as well. The hate crime figures are really useful. They're really helpful for us to understand what's being reported, but we do understand really well that hate crime is underreported. I promised that I would show you briefly the partnership calendar that we use. This lists what we're doing every month. It doesn't talk about specific locations on here. That tends to be done much closer to the actual event, but this helps us to plan, get in those operational planners, make sure it's dedicated each month. And one of the things we try to do is have a look at what's happening kind of nationally and internationally. So we talk about the events, faith and cultural festivals that are taking place, and we try to match that with our hate crime engagement days. In recent years, we've tried to ensure that our hate crime days have a focus where possible. There's our hate crime bulletin I mentioned. Here's some of the engagement events. So many of these are taking place at stations. This is me doing some internal hate crime engagement with within TFL. This is one of those community events where we've actually had colleagues in the police go into a particular community group and talk to them directly about hate crime. I did promise to talk about what we're planning. So what we're planning this year is more of the same, really. However, one of the things we're going to try to do is really increase that direct community engagement. So although we want to be visible in transport hubs, you know, we're going to be looking at those, particularly those multimodal hubs where there's buses, tubes, trains. We also want to do that direct engagement with community groups. And so a request really to all of you, if you are involved in a community group, or if you know any community groups who might want to run engagement events with us, please contact me. You can do that through Mark if you haven't got my email address, and we'll do everything we can to try to accommodate that. And then that's it. I'm so grateful. I'm sorry I talked a little bit too long. Thank you, everybody.